Here. Hope everyone's doing well. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We are live today. It is December 8th, 2025. It's Monday. And guess what we have here for you? We got a little bit of this Piers Morgan interview with Nick Fuentes. Very interesting. Just quick little story of why we are here watching this today. So earlier, well, let me back up. I'm a Piers Morgan fan. I've kind of followed his kind of career since CNN. I don't know what, like 2000. I don't even know, like the early 2000s or whatever. And then he had this controversy with the royal family, and they like did everything in their power to like take him off of. I think he worked for BBC, or he was in the UK and working and doing his news thing, and they like there's a whole thing with this guy, whole thing. But I like a lot of the things that he says. I don't agree with everything that he says, but the whole point of this is I was actually watching one of his previous interviews with Riley Gaines and a bunch of other people, and right when I got done with the interview, like watching that interview, I look on his page and it says he's live. And I'm like, what? Piers Morgan is live right now? He does these live streams like very rarely. If he does it, it's pretty legit. So, what do you know? We click on the live stream. There's like 100,000 people watching this Piers Morgan uh, and Nick Fuentes interview. It's been highly anticipated. I think people are looking for the Ben Shapiro and Nick Fuentes interview, and then are also anticipating the Candace Owens and Turning Point USA situation, or debate or discussion dealing with Charlie Kirk or whatever and his assassination. But the whole point of this is I immediately clicked on the video and we just started watching. We just clicked. We were live with all these people watching this. My just summary of what I seen since I watched the ending of it. We're gonna watch the beginning of it just to kind of break that down of what we're doing as well. It seemed right at the end, Nick Fuentes is like Piers Morgan. He just calls Piers Morgan a boomer, and Piers Morgan I guess roasts or cooks or criticizes Nick Fuentes on his celibacy because he has not had sex with a woman before, and I think he's like 27 or something like that. Whatever it is, that's his choice. But that's what I kind of got from the ending of that. And it seems Piers Morgan, he really tried to hold Nick Fuentes accountable. Probably the most accountable I've seen so far, like interview wise, towards Nick Fuentes. I've seen a couple things or a few things on him. I don't agree with everything Nick Fuentes says, but lately he's been appearing in the media, in a lot of people's podcasts. And some of the stuff he says resonates. It obviously resonates with people out there. Whether the labels to who those people are, I'll let you figure that out. But it seems to resonate with just a lot of people, and you don't have to be on this side or this side to kind of, you know, I guess agree with some of the things. I don't. He's one of those people. He's like highly controversial, and he has a lot of things that I just wow, I just can't get behind. But he's been going pretty viral. So, long story short, Piers Morgan was supposed to. He's been saying for like weeks, like asking all these people. He brings all these people on, and goes like, "What do you think about Nick Fuentes? What do you think about Nick Fuentes? What do you think about this guy?" And they all have their things that they say about him. And then you watch the next episode, and he's not on the episode. So it's like, what is all of this like? You got this guy living rent free in your head, and you don't have him on the podcast. It's just wild, right? To go speak his mind. But obviously, there's reasons, I guess people would say, why they wouldn't have him. Anyway, beyond that, I just want to just check out the beginning of this. We're not going to watch the whole thing. Shout out to Piers Morgan. It's 2 hours. I'm not going to watch 2 hours of this. If this was earlier, I would have just streamed the whole thing. I'm not going to lie. I would have streamed the whole thing. But on that note, we're going to go check this out. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. I don't agree with all the opinions and things said in this interview, but I find it to be somewhat informative, entertaining, and yeah. Let's go.
Daily Wire subscriber or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the lines should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like,
Dave
Nick
Smith.
Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy.
Yo, you can just hear like you can hear it right in their voice. Yo, that's crazy. So what's Bill Maher gonna say?
This Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes
instead of talking
not actually
to
Nick Fuentes. People say
right.
You shouldn't give him a platform over the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining. And he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis that I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those of you who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk, as we prepared for this, in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't.
This guy, he invites people on. It's like the political Jerry Springer. You just get these people on and you just go ham. They're just these folks of all different races, backgrounds, creeds. It's a great show. It's great that he brings all these people together that are so different, but obviously these people being so different can conflict heavily. And it's just like watching a bunch of children or high school kids go at it when you're trying to get, to the crux of the topic or, get to a solution of this issue that they're discussing. And sometimes you can just watch it and you can never get to that solution. You're just like, if they could just stay on it instead of the bickering, if we could do this on a bigger level, we could solve so many things. But regardless, he's saying that he's not trying to ambush him, but he be hitting them like with the gotchas. But obviously when you start hearing some of Nick's point of views, and then you have the point of views of Piers Morgan, it's obviously going to escalate, and it's going to not be it's not going to be such a simple conversation. It's going to get to this aggression. Let's get back into it.
To ambush you, I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting.
That's a great question.
You've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
I've never heard of Nick Fuentes until I think it was like 2020 when him and his Groyper folks showed up to the Capitol, and then from there you just hear from that to he tries to show up to, or he shows up to the White House with Ye and Milo Yiannopoulos or whatever that guy's name is, and then he showed up on, I think, Tim Pool's show. Was that a couple years ago, or that was in 20? Man, it's been a lot, but that's my history of knowing who this person is. But he has so many other things to him, so let's get back into it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable, and then there's your show on Rumble,
where you
often come across as having, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think that's, you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison, or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following, and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting, and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate. We play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one, and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
That's a great question.
Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Yeah, your childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family.
Interesting.
And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years. In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University and I read a lot of things online and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's kind of where I came from.
My first obvious question is...
And that's pretty relatable. Like, that's what makes Nick Fuentes like a formidable person to a lot of the people that don't like him, because he's relatable to a lot of people. That's a relatable story of a young American white guy or white man or whatever, or guy like growing up in an American town, American city, going through what life has for him and his family and so on and so forth. It's relatable. I'm just saying the story is relatable. Now, all the other stuff that he gets into, that's a little different, but let's get right back into it.
Were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
Wow.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. for the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave and then it would stop.
It's
this
just
one,
nonstop.
it just keeps going up for 35 years. And
crazy.
it's too many. So
I can kind of agree with him on that. I see where he's talking about. The immigration back in the day was just like in spurts to his understanding. I would love to see like numbers and proof on that, but I can kind of understand that it wasn't as hype. Like getting to America has been hype, but like it's super hype now. Like everything is so expensive. It's a lot harder. They're doing a lot more crazier things in all these other countries, so there's a lot more appeal to like pull up here. And especially with the last administration, they made it very like clear that they wanted people to show up. Now that that's been canked, it's just there's just from what he's talking about, where it's just spurts of people to just full under consistent people coming to the border, I can see it. That's all I'm saying.
That's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
You mentioned,
you can call it the same thing.
You mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So
yeah.
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Do they come here legally? That's
not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have 0 immigrants forever, or even 0 immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador. And it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's
the non-white part, but the assimilating part, that's where I'm at. That's where I've even talked to a lot of folks that I know of just my perspective. I want people to come in, but they need to be vetted properly, like seriously properly. We just had an incident with that the Afghan national that took that shot at the 2 National Guardsmen. The lady, she was like a PFC or something like that, or a specialist. She's passed, and the other guy's in critical condition. The whole point of this is we have issues with vetting. If you vet the people and they assimilate, I really don't have that many. I don't have any issue at that point. Like, but if they're not being vetted and they're not assimilating to the culture that people are fighting and who have fought and died for this, and these people are coming here from all over to like come to this place, you should be assimilating to what the American society has created. So you're not out here bringing all these terrible things from these other countries. I don't like, it's just, that's kind of my perspective, but it's just the vetting and the assimilating. He brought up the assimilating. That's why I'm speaking on it. Let's get back into it.
Transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. Maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people.
It's crazy.
All different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say
it's a lot of people, man.
Everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans.
Wow.
We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's.
That's crazy.
Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say.
First of all, I don't even like Olive Garden. I was just talking to somebody about this literally like a couple days ago. Everyone was back in like high school days. It was like Olive Garden. You would leave high school and you go to Olive Garden or whatever. Or it's like when you go on a date like with a girl, you take them to Olive Garden. I don't even like Olive Garden all like that. And this dude just built this whole thing around Olive Garden. It just, oh man, it's something else. His dad must have been something else.
So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is: do you think you grew up in a racist environment? That your father was inherently racist, and that thought process
carried over,
moved to you?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's
it's your anecdote.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will.
Said you are. Yo, I shouldn't be laughing about this, but he said, no, you are. Whoa.
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush,
Nick,
but
to be clear,
I think
I'm
everybody
not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast.
I think it's actually a pretty good question, though. Not because of who I am and what I look like. I think it's a very good question. Very good question.
It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare.
I guarantee no one is asking him this question, though, too. By the way, I don't think anybody has come up with this question.
Whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, in the West Side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent.
It's the newer generation.
In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city.
The YNs.
They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people, and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees, and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year, and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city. And we're looking for accountability.
Bars.
We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, you know, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before in America.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime.
Oh, he said Aladdin. That's crazy.
So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it. But I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, which just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well... See here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying? No. Well, I'm just going to ask you.
I'm just saying though, I don't come up with stuff like that and just say it on TV. I don't come up with that. I don't just tell somebody that. I don't come up with it and say it on a podcast. I don't say it on TV. That's something that would never come out of my mouth unless it was a joke or unless there was something real about that. I'll just leave it at that.
Question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he
Piers
was
Morgan's going in.
And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week,
you're like, what?
I reach a different conclusion?
Reach a different conclusion.
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in
60.
19? Yeah, so you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Whoa.
And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
It's crazy.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of
what
American
is that?
blacks would you like to
This
see
dude.
in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
That's crazy.
So you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
specifics.
Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You
the
just
crime
said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify.
No
you were talking
context.
about black murderers.
Crazy.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
This dude Nick is wild, man.
Or?
This dude's
I think,
wild.
yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why?
Yo, this dude's wild,
Here's the difference.
man.
Black people
Wild.
are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago.
They
You
don't.
should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My
We
son
could
went
go
to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there.
The west
and I'll
side.
tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was
They don't stick
just remind
around.
me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in
have?
20 will eventually commit a murder.
So
I have.
your
1 in
rate
20.
means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
Sure,
this is
a lot
real
of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do. don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
What's with the
shootings-
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit.
I believe that there are people who are thinking exactly how he just is explaining it. I feel like there's even black people that are on this vibe, or people of color, minority, whatever. Everybody's thinking the way that he's thinking, or I wouldn't. There's everyone of all walks of life that are thinking the way that what he's saying. Unfortunate, but that's just anybody. If you go anywhere that and anybody looks this kind of way, you're gonna be like, you're gonna go or think to go the other way. You're gonna think like, hey, is this person a threat? Or there so many other things. It's not just it shouldn't be fixated on one race, whether it's black, white, whoever.
It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people.
But facts are facts when it comes down to it. It's just crazy. He said that there are like it's like the 17, 13%.
Like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person.
I'm not living around blacks. Sorry.
He said new generation.
You know,
Dude,
I want white
it's
kids,
something else.
and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
Yo, this dude
It's
is
racial for me.
Yo, this dude Nick
call me
Fuentes.
racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
This is very
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist.
Oh, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
That's crazy.
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all. Well,
then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father, because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well,
I'll
then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
I'll defend the anecdote.
Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there...
But it's not fine for someone to
most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
And they will.
And I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words. With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing.
Listen to me, no matter what, if this is Nick's point of view on all this stuff, my guy is smiling after all this stuff that is, it's definitely questionable. Like, it's kind of racist, man. And he just laughs about it. But as soon as you bring up, I just, I don't know. But this is wild.
That's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism, I do. Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's see if I can.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank
so I want
you.
to play you another clip. This is where you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
That's crazy.
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent or the reason there's crime is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
Right. How do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
Interesting.
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
and
just
what proportion
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Is my mic working?
What
proportion?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young
See
white
how he
men
turns it around. Interesting.
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs,
white people
especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60 to 65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people?
And that's the difference.
No,
the difference
I'm
is
not.
In
What I'm
terms
saying
of
to you is, by your logic,
you should hold
if we
that
now have
other
agreed
demographic
that the vast majority of
the
mass
same how you
shootings in
do
schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres.
You gotta have that same energy for the people that look exactly like you. You're gonna have that energy for somebody else that doesn't look like you. You need to have that same energy for people who look like you. You know what I mean? I see what he's doing here, but Nick is trying to use the people that are doing these crimes in school is a lower proportion. There's a lower amount of people doing these school things than there are of black people doing these crimes on a bigger scale, on a wider scale. There's more. It's just like, bro, what Piers Morgan is trying to say is like, it don't matter. It don't matter whether you need to hold that energy for white people, too. Like you're doing it for the black people that are committing these crimes. And then Nick is just trying to do this. Well, man, this is something else.
Won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
are you hearing it? No.
See,
What's
I think the trouble with your
proportion?
statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time.
That's crazy.
Because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No, tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention.
What's the number though?
Is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people.
Yeah, that's where it's like. That's where it's like, hey, my man, that is racism though. Like I kind of like could see some of the stuff that he says, but like that is just blatant up racism. And hey, he doesn't have to want those things, but I'm going to call it out though. If you going to call it out, but hey, if that's how he want to rock, that's how he wants to rock.
That there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them. You don't care. You don't have any interest in them.
You
it
don't
doesn't
care.
exercise your mind. Maybe
No,
you
see,
don't-
no one's
maybe you
buying
don't
this.
have
This
kids.
argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people could even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment? People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger, in terms of probability, it's not even comparable. And I would say this, to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare, and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is, the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black and white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable.
Too much gun violence in general.
The difference is, I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people.
Right. Like Piers Morgan is like, bro, that's cool, but none of that equals me going, I gotta move differently because of this person's color of their skin. Like, it doesn't add up.
You've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side,
a nuisance,
huge criminal population. And I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable. And I think even black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying...
it shouldn't be with color, though, man. It's just like, you want to live in a nice neighborhood. You want to live... We're safe. It's cleaner. We're going to be moving here. Safe, clean environment. But it shouldn't be... the color shouldn't be... The color of someone's skin shouldn't be... the crux of it, though, man.
I'm a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
you're the product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake
Not
of
really.
argument, sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican.
Yeah, he's like, bro, don't think about my parents being like interracial or anything like that, or like, no, don't think about that. But you know, me, I want that. It's like, whoa, whoa there, buddy. Like this pure blood kind of mindset is whack. It's like, bro, you're not even of that pure blood to be over here saying I want to be like this. Like, that's where you lost me on that one, Nick Fuentes.
You're literally,
for the sake of argument,
the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
I'll be right back, folks.
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
and
Europeans.
It's not white, though, is it? It's not white.
Well, you're apparently more of a racial purist than me. You got like
not
a one
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing:
Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are black?
The honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
Letting it go.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck.
He's trying to make it known to folks that are of his skin color, that are just these oblivious people who are just living throughout their lives and are not checking over their shoulder. They don't have situational awareness. They're not able to protect themselves, or they don't have someone else that is, keen to these different survival skills and aspects. He's talking to those people like, hey, you need to wake up. You do need to think a little more of like your surroundings and who is in your surroundings. And what, like, the sad part is these survival skills of picking up on like who is dangerous. It comes down to what that person looks like. But he's just speaking to those people who are just living in la la land. It's like, yo, wake up. You know, it doesn't have to be a skin thing, but you do need to wake up and realize these people, not these people, but there are people out there that are dangerous, and you need to be aware of what's going on. I like how we did bring up that, unfortunately, being this critical of one's environment leaves black people to be taking the brunt of this, because I like how he mentioned that they're the good folks that will see this and they will take offense to it. Let's go back. Let's just go back real quick. I thought what he just said was very important.
And I said it's on offend them when we turn it, or if you monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally far fewer.
But how many?
Fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
I mean, you're
in
very
front of
big
me.
on. You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific, for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from
Okay.
experience.
Okay.
Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on. And I would add to that, you know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
But
Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the
perpetrated
neck.
by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're
And then not
implying that
only
white
did-
people don't
I completely forgot about Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. It's crazy.
do this. And my point to you, Nick
Okay.
Fuentes, is of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, I never said white people don't do it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either
No
know.
disagreement.
You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media, on
So
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam
you
footage, on
don't
cops.
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are
of-
narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah,
Are
you're
you
ahead
going
of
to
me.
turn this around on
You're
me?
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am
yay.
kind of black,
Yay.
aren't I?
No, not that. You said,
Oh, yay
I'm not
also.
saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the number one
racist
black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's
Well,
your
no.
friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor
That's
about
crazy.
narcissistic
He brought
white
up Ye.
people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life,
I have, yeah.
Okay, well then you know he's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also.
Well, you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
I
Because you're being very rude by interrupting me right
apologize
now.
to you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I
okay.
do want to
You're not giving me a
finish
hard
my
time.
point. I do want to finish my point about Ye.
He said, "Don't give
He
me a
is a
hard
guy
time."
who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite. And by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So, no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. he's actually not like that at all. Well, we're talking
he's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite.
Right.
We're going to take
Back
a little
to reality.
commercial
Right?
break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and indeed what Ye has said about the same subject matter.
Yo, folks, I'm out of here. We checked out the Piers Morgan, Nick Fuentes interview that released today, December 8th, 2025. This is like the first 50 minutes of it. This stream was like an hour and 21. We checked out the homie Just John's new song that he dropped. What's it called? Just Thinking? Wishful Thinking. Shout out to Just John and his new song Wishful Thinking on Spotify. Yeah, we watched the Nick Fuentes interview that he finally pulled up on with Piers Morgan. The later end of the podcast, it gets pretty crazy. That it gets a little bit more heated. I like how the beginning was like cordial, and then it just gets upped. I think it went to that point when Piers Morgan brought up Nick Fuentes his father. As soon as he brought up his father, it made it real personal, and it is elevating from there. Piers Morgan at the end of this, I think he talks about what Nick Fuentes, how he feels about Joseph Stalin and the guy with the mustache and everything like that. I don't like none of those people, but obviously he does, and he brings that up. So that's pretty much like where that goes. But what I thought was interesting from this is that you can hear Nick's upbringing when he's talking about Chicago and everything like that, and you hear the information about his father and kind of how he grew up. I thought that was interesting how he grew up. And I could see somebody like I could see his father probably saying something like that and it being true, but I don't know Nick. I don't know Nick. I don't know his father, but I know old racist people. I've heard of what they say, and they say some stuff similar to that, but that's beside the point. But I thought just hearing about how his upbringing is very interesting. He's definitely like strong on his views, like how he feels about women, how he feels about minorities or whatever. I mean, that's him. You know what I mean? That's him. I think what I find relatable to him is that he is speaking about some of the things that are going on in politics and like how just certain things are just uneven. I'm with him on that, but he's been going viral, like pretty viral. He's hitting the mainstream side of things now, so And then now he did this, and he did this interview, and it's up. It's up. It's got 1 million plus views in 9 hours. It's up. It's up. So I'm gonna watch the rest of it offline. I watched probably, I think I tapped in a little after this, and then watched until the end. I thought it was pretty good, but yeah, we're definitely going to be hearing a lot about this. I seen right as I started to stream Andy Frisella. Shout out to Andy Frisella and DJ, the folks at First Form. I think that's how you say Andy Frisella's brand or whatever. Yeah, they were already talking about Nick Fuentes crush Piers Morgan in this interview. I feel like it was now that I've seen pretty much all of it, I think it's pretty even. I think they both got some really good questions in and really good rebuttals. I think Piers Morgan, I think he was prepared for this. Nick Fuentes, this is just another interview, I'm sure, but I think it's cool to have these conversations because they need to be had. Like the most uncomfortable conversations, unfortunately, need to be had. And yeah, you got a good platform as this to go do it, whatever you feel about Piers Morgan. But yeah, we got to see more. We got to see more of these conversations happen. I'd like to see the Nick Fuentes Ben Shapiro interview, and I'd like to see Candace Owens pull up the TP USA, and they discuss the Charlie Kirk assassination and kind of get all these I guess grievances out of the way. So anyway, it's your boy kicking it with Timmy B. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit the like, share, and the subscribe button. Make sure you're drinking water and staying healthy. It's December 8th, 2025. Once again, we checked out Piers Morgan Uncensored, the latest interview with Nick Fuentes. I'm going to leave the link in the description below. I'll be back with more.